Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, the best five offensive line family portrait has been revealed, and offensive line coach Clay McGuire's dropping hints on how solidified it actually is. We're into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you today. On the episode, it's a heavy topic. We're talking big uglies, big handsomes, whichever way you want to go. The O-line, a subject of conversation after hearing from Texas Tech offensive line coach Clay McGuire this week. Obviously, as vital of a group to the season's efforts as any other you can make a case for, and so was interested to hear some thoughts from him on standouts we'll get to from, say, spring to the fall or over the last year or so. I also want to get to the case that we've been observing closely at the right tackle position that has been an ongoing competition but has been missing one of the primary participants due to injury in Hunter Zambrano. So we've wondered about that spot as you get closer and closer to the season, maybe getting closer and closer to a resolution. Is the door closed on the competition? We'll get to that coming up in just a moment. But want to kick off the conversation with this, which is basically an offensive line Red Raider portrait. As we're going ahead to week number one, Coach McGuire was actually asked about some competitions ongoing, and he said, we feel like we know the best five, and here they are. Here's Red Raider offensive line coach Clay McGuire.
I think we probably have the five. I mean, it's not always. I mean, you never know until you get to Saturday. But I think we have the starting five kind of set. Obviously, we're in a process of guys returning to play and getting to see and evaluate them more. Getting our depth back to where we were hopeful to have it coming into camp. So. That's kind of my biggest concern as far as that is just making sure, one, that we are playing at a speed that we need to play on Saturdays, that we're in the proper conditioning to play how we need to play, and we have the depth to do what we want to do this season as far as, trying to take some reps off guys, maybe rotate a little bit depending on performance from guys in our depth. The ones that we've went with here lately has been Howard, Will, Sherry, DC, and Ponton. Obviously, we just got Zambrano back full go, so he's a guy that's definitely in the mix. And so there's a couple others out there that, Danny Seal's been working a lot with us, really done a good job of continuing to prove his skills. Got a lot of true freshmen that are getting quality reps. They're going to be really good players at some point. So that's kind of where, the guys that I'd mention right now.
He gives you the five, a couple other names to consider. What do you think, Chris?
As the young people say, Clay McGuire is a real one. I love Clay because he's a straight shooter. He doesn't really mince words. He's not going to pump up, a bunch of stuff or, you just kind of get full transparency there. But if you cut him open, double T's, it just starts spilling out everywhere. Because he knows all.
Yet awesome imagery.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He's a part of so many eras, and he's one of yours and all the things, and yet he's seen it from afar too, being at various different places. A very experienced coach. I'm prone to at times, I don't want to say like overreaction, but remember, was it a couple of 3 shows ago, and we kind of laid some groundwork, and I think people kind of like reacted to our show as in like, uh-oh, we got a problem here? Like talking about the O-line and like, some of the issues we had with it. Like you didn't have all your pieces yet. You were kind of in flux a bit. You hadn't had a lot of time. And if you listen to Clay, it's pretty clear that this has kind of been the group that they've rolled with, large in part, really since the spring. And Jados at left guard, I think, is don't know, somewhat new. It's not brand new, but they've worked him on the left side. So he's kind of starting left guard, backup left tackle, if you will. I think we know Sheridan Wilson's been at center. We know that Davion Carter's just been locked in at right guard. And I think Ponton, since the bowl game, is large in part been your right tackle. And you've worked a variety of different players in at these different spots, and you've jumbled it up. And they've talked about this where we need to cross train. We need to really think outside the box and give ourselves some different options, because we didn't do enough of that last year, and we were kind of stuck. But maybe we should feel a lot better about this group. So what I'm saying is, to myself, I'm looking in the mirror going, shame on you, Chris. Shame on you. Maybe we should feel a little bit better about everything and not be concerned. And part of this, too, is because I think in the back of all of our minds, and I know you're going to agree with me here, we felt like Scurry and Zambrano, large in part, would absolutely be a part of this thing. And just because they're not of the group that he mentions isn't a bad thing. We had kind of talked ourselves into this. Like, you got portal additions, you got this guy coming back. Of course they're going to be in the deal. Well, that's not the way it sits right now. That's not bad news. It just looks a little bit different than we thought. Where I think we get back to worrying is if you never really get those guys back and available and ready to compete and push, or if somebody goes down and they're not available to play. That's really where I think you go, okay, well, we're back to square one here. But it's pretty clear he feels pretty comfortable with this group. And it's the left side should be worlds better. It should be worlds better. And Sheridan's going to be better. And I think Davion being healthy is better. And I think Ponton, when you asked me the question a year ago, at some point before the season, who's the best pro prospect on your team? And one of the first names I gave you, and was thinking big picture, was Jacob Ponton. He's starting to realize some of that potential. So yeah, maybe you're in much better shape there than we realized. I still have got questions about the depth, and do you go 10 deep, or is it just 6? And where does the truth lie there? And I don't know if we ultimately know that, but you're starting to get some guys back and all those things. So I take that as a pretty positive comment, Calvin.
I would as well, based in part in one thing, and I want to get back to Ponton and specifically what's playing out at right tackle in just a moment. But I guess the positive I'm taking away from it is that it sounds like they've had some consistency to work with for the most part through camp, maybe more than we kind of thought, because we're possibly waiting for some guy to get back and then you'll begin that chemistry process. But I don't know, is that what you're picking up based on that?
I would retweet everything you just said. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I concur. And that's so that's why, maybe I slight overreaction or just, and again, just because you pay Zambrano this, or you paid whoever, I go back to what Cody said back in January on some of the interviews he had. Nothing would please me more than to have a younger guy beat out one of these guys. And that's kind of what's happened. I don't know if it was a true, everybody's healthy, I straight up beat you. It's been more out of well, you're not even practicing, so I'm going to take these reps and I'm going to play this position and I'm not going to give it back. That's kind of how it's played out. But I think if somebody like a Scurry or a Zambrano, if they have any eye on wanting to play at the next level, you can bet that you're going to get motivated versions of them at some point soon, just because it's time's running out and they've got to push through and try to get healthy and all those things. So again, we have to think long-term, big picture here, what's it look like in 2 months from now and all that stuff. But I listen to what he says, and you've got these pieces in place, and I do think that there's been some consistency with that particular group. And Davion Carter missed a day to graduate. there's been subtle differences there, and they've worked some different guys in some of this stuff to try to create some depth. But I think this has kind of been large in part your 5 there for a while, and we'll see if somebody can crack that, or if it stays this way. But I think you have talent, you have upside, you've got, heck, man, your tackles are going to be fairly young, and so like if you want to think from a positive, like you could have this group, these set of tackles again next year. That's a lot of fun. You may graduate both guards, but anyway, so I guess we'll see what we get here as we roll along here in the coming weeks.
Well, I think the most interesting story that's been playing out within that group is what's gone on with the right tackle spot and Jacob Ponton and Hunter Zambrano. And I want to listen to another comment from Clay McGuire where I feel like he's really dropping some hints as to what the reality is. First, today's episode brought to you by Rugiet. Boys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to get Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify brain stimulation and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in only 15 minutes. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. So head to Rugiet.com/lockedoncollege and use our code lockedoncollege to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet.com/lockedoncollege, Rugiet.com/lockedoncollege, and use our promo code lockedoncollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Clay McGuire, where I feel like he's really dropping some hints as to what the reality is, because I'm questioning, and I think I just asked you on a recent episode, how close are we getting to this being Ponton's spot when we're opening up week 1? While he will use the word competition, some of what else he says actually will still lead me to believe, and maybe I'm just thick-headed, or lead me to ask at least, Chris, is the competition actually over? Let's take a listen to offensive line coach Clay McGuire.
It's a competition thing. We want to have the best 5 out there, and as Zambrano gets back into the mix and gets the reps that Ponton's got, we're going to play the best guy. Obviously, like I said, looking back on last year, honestly, probably should have started Ponton the last couple games of the year. I really think he probably was better than the guys we were playing and stuff like that. Definitely played very well in the bowl game for us and showed a lot of flashes of what he could be. And so very excited about him too as well. Obviously excited to see what he gets to, what he can do getting out there competing against other people. Obviously we've been going against our defense, 30-something practices now. Kind of knows from a schematic standpoint what they're doing. Obviously they got really good players over there. So we've been getting to really compete against a high-level opponent every single day. So I'm excited to see what our guys can do against another opponent.
I know a coach is not going to say, hey, the competition's closed, but some of what he's saying regarding, man, wish we probably should have played him at the end of last year. And then the reps that he's gotten, what he's done with him, we know the potential he's got. I'm kind of wondering if maybe this is going to be a really difficult guy to unseat, barring something extreme as we move forward.
Yeah, I think you and I hear that the same way. I think that it may take quite a bit for Zambrano or anybody to, unseat him. And whether that's Ponton not playing well when the season gets going or an injury somewhere or whatever. And you certainly hope that Zambrano does get back, stay back, and pushes. That only makes the whole thing better.
Chris, what are we actually in with Zambrano? Like a week, or have we had a week and a half? 6 days or something?
I think probably a week. I think he's going to end up having a couple of weeks before the season of practicing and all that. But again, you can't replicate 30 practices. You can't replicate like the win. Your conditioning. And your cardio aspect of it. And
this is after a full season missed.
Yeah, it's been a minute since he's actually played.
Yeah. So uphill already. I mean, it was going to be a challenge.
Absolutely. And don't forget, he was one of the top offensive line, portal additions for anybody out there. I mean, he was ranked. The folks that were looking at this and like looking at all the who was in there and all that. I mean, he's a top 5 or 10, offensive line transfer addition. So you just never know. And I hear Clay talking about should have played Ponton last year, maybe, and that would have been, in my opinion, over at left tackle, which is I think where he played in the bowl game because Caleb Rogers was at right tackle, and maybe the Colorado game would have been a bit different had they. So that's why I also like Clay. He's willing to say, yeah, I mean, we had to do over again. This is, I would have done it different. Like,
what do you think kept that trigger from being pulled last year?
Great question. I don't know if it was. I don't know what Jacob was going on. What was going on specifically with him during those days and weeks? Yeah. If they just felt like, is he not quite weigh enough? Can he hold up? I mean, because he has added some. I mean, going back like 9 months ago, he's added. I would say, substantial weight for. It's all. I mean, it's not like he's added 100 pounds or something, but I mean, I think he's probably added some meaningful weight that is probably puts him in a different spot to compete physically now compared to last year. And the other thing that I think Clay points out astutely is that if he's holding up at right tackle against what he's going against on a daily basis and in scrimmages and the thing, I don't know if he'll see anybody anywhere near as good this season, at least in the regular season, than he's getting in practices. Whether it be interior or edge guys or linebackers for that matter. I mean, I just think that he's seeing really talented humans coming at him, and his youth and inexperience is probably much more sharp now, and going through that live fire with what he's been going against every day. So I just don't, because you just think about some of the games you're about to play and some of these scary road games you're about to play. I mean, Utah may be a tough place to play, but it has nothing to do with their defensive line. That's not what makes them scary. It's in fact, it's the opposite. It's their O-line and their very mobile quarterback and the setting. But, Kansas State and Arizona State, they're not going to trot at you the Romello Height and David Bailey equivalents or the Lee Hunter equivalent. They'll be very good and solid, but this isn't. So I just try to put all that together and just say to you that, man, I mean, that should speak well, because he's really gone against it. And obviously if you got the respect of Clay McGuire, then I think that should say a lot. And we knew what kind of upside he had, but I think we're now entering the phase where he's starting to realize some of that potential. Because if he wants to be an NFL guy, he can do it. I mean, that's what you're looking at here, no doubt.
You've mentioned him in that context for a while, and of course, previously it's like, give me the name again so I can write it down, because he's not coming across the radar all that often. But maybe we're seeing him taking hold of that opportunity right now and seizing that carp, as they say. Chris, I know there's some carryover, and that includes the guy that actually snaps him the ball and one guard. But I'm wondering if maybe we're overlooking a little bit the chemistry between quarterback and offensive line as well. We've talked so much about the O-line among themselves. But there's also a guy that they got to protect, and it's not, something that you want to do all that often. Hey, let's swap out 3 of the 5, 4 of the 5, or whatever in front of this guy as he goes into another year. So I know you're really looking to improve it, and change in personnel came with some of that. And you've got the center to quarterback connection still intact, but there's probably had to have been some of that time spent, I guess, between QB and O-line, because you got to have a feel for it, don't you, with what's happening behind you, I guess, if you're one of those big guys up front.
Yeah, I think we probably take for granted a little bit, like the Sheridan Wilson aspect of this team and that battery, if you will, with him and Barron. We probably don't talk about Sheridan enough, because I just think he's just solid, and he takes a lot on, and he's been a culture guy and all those things. But I think Barron, having gotten to work with a lot of this group, but specifically the center, I think is well worth mentioning as well, because they had 12 games together last year, and there's a lot of subtle nuance there between quarterback and center, and and I think Davion being next to, because that was what it looked like for a lot of last year. So there's just more to like than maybe I guess maybe I just wanted to focus on what I thought it was going to be, and who's not quite available yet, and all those things. And you're just like, you just wish you had all your pieces, and like you could put, like, let's really see what's going on. But that's just not how this is going. But I think you've settled into a really good starting five that I think Barron's been able to work with for all of August, large in part, and maybe some of the summer too, with what they were allowed to do. And maybe you'll be better for it. So maybe we should not necessarily be as stressed out or worried about the O-line as much. But again, I will say too that it's still kind of a question until it's not. Now you've got some younger backs, and like there's some pressure on this offensive line, and to protect their quarterback and open up some running lanes for some inexperienced backs to a certain extent. And I wish I could quantify how much like Howard Sampson ultimately means. Like his presence, his ability to move, his size, his upgrade, like what's that worth to everybody else? And I wish I could is that in terms of like, well, I mean, he's so much better. It's going to give every play 1.5 seconds longer of protection or development, or it's going to, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to quantify that, but if I could, I would try, but I do think there's something there to say that his presence alone, I think, helps the whole thing. And because Clay talked a lot about Jados too, and how he's just been really good and gotten a lot better from the spring until now. And I think he's kind of solid because he's a big boy. I think they clearly hit on him and feel really good about him. And so your left side in general is just seemingly a lot better and a lot different and a lot more physical and a lot more athletic and bigger than it was last year.
That's the hope. And I think you did hit the nail on the head when you described a relationship between two men, one of which walks up behind the other and runs the hand through the undercarriage, as one that features subtle nuance. There's no doubt about that. Before we get out of here, we've had plenty of time for Ponton Pub, and he's going to get a little more. I guess he's deserving of it. But yes, let's make some time for a little Jado shine. First, today's episode brought to you by OpenPhone. And if you're running a business, you already know every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? If you're like me, probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. If juggling 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate is a part of your daily routine, OpenPhone can solve that instantly. And their custom AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners right now 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. With OpenPhone, no missed calls and no missed customers. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. And whether you got your eyes on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. It's simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. You'll love how easy and simple it is to use. And of course, PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure every time. Download the PrizePicks app today and use our code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. With PrizePicks, run your game. Courtesy of offensive line coach Clay McGuire once again, talking about the guys that he does feel like have made some of the biggest leaps and the most progress, leaving last year, rolling through the spring, and now into fall camp. Here's Clay McGuire.
Two guys stand out. I think Jacob Ponton obviously started the bowl game for us. Has been very consistent. Just scratching the surface. Really, I think the sky's the limit for him from a potential standpoint. But I think he's improved a lot. Definitely been consistent, and been out there every day. I think Will Jados is another one that continues to get better and better. Like I said, he came in and he played multiple positions in spring. We kind of settled him in on the left side, left guard and left tackle, and has done a really good job, feels comfortable over there. And I would say those two guys have shown kind of the biggest jumps from last year at this, spring to here.
Interesting to hear him talk about Jados at multiple positions going back to the spring, Chris, and then mentions him as a guy not only at left guard but left tackle that's gotten some time.
Yeah, it's just creating options for themselves if something were to happen, but because it's like somebody else may be listed backup left tackle on some depth chart, but in a game they would move Jados over there and put Daniel Sill in at left guard or something along those lines. It doesn't necessarily follow what the depth chart looks like, but and Ponton, he's just a redshirt freshman. And there's a lot more to get out of him, if that makes sense. A lot more growing up to do, a lot more maturing, a lot more potential to tap into. But this is a very talented player and then Jados is kind of this finished product or close to it that I think is just gelled perfectly between Sheridan and Howard Sampson. So what do we ultimately get here? I don't know, but I could tell, because one of the other comments, and we're not going to play it for you, but one of the other comments that Clay had was in talking about his group in total. I think he's like, yeah, we basically had like 6, maybe 7 guys last year. He goes, I feel like right now we've got a full second team. So, and speaking of like our group in general is in a much different place than it was. And that's what you were trying to do. I want Zambrano to be a part of it at some level. I want Scurry to be a part of it at some level. And if that means they're the 6th and 7th guys, so be it. Because you're going to need at some point along the line here, you're going to need these guys to continue to push, to continue to be available, to continue to take somebody's job, whatever. I just think that's what this is going to take. But right now, it appears that you're pretty comfortable with your starting 5, and so again, I think not that we necessarily overreacted, but I think we're just trying to look at all the different things available here, and maybe we should feel a little bit better about this thing than we did 3 or 4 days ago after hearing from Clay.
Somebody been getting on your ass at home, Chris? I feel like you're beating yourself up too much. I don't even remember the reaction.
No. I just I just remember I can't remember which show it was, and I think you said you were like, "Hey man, our previous show, I guess we set off the alarm."
Well, we had a mobster, asking like, "Hey, after I heard y'all listen to you talk about the O-line for 20 minutes, is that a concern?"
Yeah, and I guess I've just got that. Maybe it's the one person, but I'm just thinking like
I've been optimistic. I think both of us have about the chances for dramatic improvement. I mean, I look kind of at Coach McGuire like I look at the guys on the defensive side up front. Like, man, you got some shiny new toys. Singularly, one of the shiniest toys in Howard Sampson that was added to the roster. So there's some of that same pressure. I mean, we have higher expectations. I don't think there's any doubt. For like the decades worth of a trend line, O-line wise, it needs to be seriously pointing up in 2025.
I don't feel about this group like I feel about the defensive line.
Not apples to apples. No, sir.
Yeah. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
And I guess my main frustration / concern is that you've just been nickel and dimed enough to where you haven't been able to put all of the ingredients in a pot and come up with an unbelievably great stew that you serve with cornbread. Right now, it's like, maybe we need a little salt. Maybe we need a little, I don't know what it is. But hopefully at some point you get all of these pieces and then but we're kind of running out of time because in some ways, once the season starts, it's harder to push and take somebody's job or to impress because you just have limited opportunities. And sometimes you'd only get an opportunity if somebody goes down or whatever. But that's my, with the list of Cleveland and Zambrano and Scurry and, Holton Hendricks and some folks that have missed some days here and there and all that, you just kind of were wishing that wasn't the case. But hey, man, this is football and here we go. But sounds like you can Sharpie your starting five or get close to it. He's like, you never know until you get to Saturday, which is true. We still got to get through one Saturday before we can get to the real one. So we've got a ways, and so maybe things could change the next week. But feels pretty good here, I guess.
We're just trying to get through a mock Saturday first. I did like, though, that he hedged with that. You got to throw that in. You never quite know, and we've still got some time. All right, Chris, appreciate your time. As always, man, enjoyed it, and looking forward to the next one. We'll be back around for a big mailbag finish to the week. So buckle up, man. We'll see you then.
Sounds good. And thank you all to subscribing for what we do here. It helps us a ton. And shout out to the gentleman that I saw at Blue Sky on 98th Street at lunch who consumes this show every morning. And hey, man, we're here for you, sir. So I appreciate your kind words, and we love seeing our peeps out in the public there, if you will. So we'll talk to everybody next time. Keep the hope alive.
That's right, man. Appreciate you for dialing us up out there, and anybody else wherever you may be. Thanks for making us a part of your day. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the everydayers for always riding along. And of course, another shout out to the Matador Mob. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining that crew. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.